Cartoons and animated female characters are over-sexualized in comparison to male animated characters, and that's a fact. Hi everyone, my name is Sofia, and in today's video we're gonna be discussing the over-sexualization of female animated characters in relation to the male gaze and how that affects society and children's development. So before we start, we need to understand what's over-sexualization. Like really, I think we probably have all heard about it, but what is it actually? So over-sexualization is basically portraying and treating characters in an overly sexual manner, especially and usually girls and women. Here's some example of how female characters are over-sexualized in comparison to the male characters in the same movie or TV show, etc. As you can see, there's a clear difference of how they are created and portrayed. So this over-sexualization happens especially in different aspects, but especially in relation to how the character is presented to the audience. So this can include the different camera angles, the clothes they wear, the attitudes, and really, and this is a key point, how they're treated and seen by others. This including how they're treated by the other characters in the story, and how they're treated by the audience itself. And this is highly relevant because this is the connection that the over-sexualization of female cartoon characters has with the male gaze. And this is alarming because the cartoons and animated characters we're referring to are the ones targeted to young audiences, children and teenagers. So this also shows us that the male gaze is present in almost every aspect of media, even those that are directed to a really young audience that shouldn't have a sexualization at all in their TV shows and mass media. Okay, so just like we did with over-sexualization, we also need to understand what's the male gaze. In general terms, the male gaze is portraying women or gender minorities from a heterosexual main point of view that presents women as a sexual object that's there for the pleasure of the viewer, considering the viewer especially a male heterosexual man. And this is also really related to this whole TikTok trend going around of women being written by men, or on the other hand, men written by women. So the male gaze doesn't have to be necessarily written by a man. It typically is written by a man, but it can also be written by a woman. The thing is that it has to be thinking about things from a heterosexual male perspective and having to consideration that a target audience to be also a heterosexual male to be the viewer. You know, in the male gaze, basically everything is directed to the audience. So in the male gaze, the thing is that everything revolves around the male audience, and there's many things about female characters especially that are there for the pleasure of men. And you can also say, oh yes, but male characters are also sexualized. And yes, you're right, but those male characters aren't sexualized for the pleasure of women viewers, of heterosexual women viewers. They're there for male power fantasy. The thing is that the male gaze tells women what... So the thing about the male gaze is that it tells women what men like in women, but it doesn't tell men what women want in men. See, that's the thing about the male gaze. The fact that females are over-sexualized in mass media that's directed to children is really, really alarming because kids and children are still developing. And considering that mass media has a huge effect and influence in the portrayal and maintenance of stereotypes, that makes it even more alarming. Actually, and I'm gonna quote here, according to a research by Elizabeth McDadd, I hope I pronounced it correct, by Elizabeth McDadd Montes, viewing sexualized media causes women and girls to internalize these beauty standards and gender roles, leading females to self-objectify or view themselves as sexual object. So basically what this is saying is that we are teaching girls to over-sexualize themselves, and that their existence in general has to do with the pleasure of others. So we're basically incorporating the whole concept of the male gaze into our minds and into real life. So we have enough with it being on mass media, but this is also affecting other aspects of lives, and we're also teaching it to children. So if we're teaching it to children, which are like the future of humanity, then when are we actually gonna get rid of this whole phenomena? We're teaching girls especially about self-objectification, and this is also backed up by the American Psychological Association, and I'm also gonna quote here. In self-objectification, girls internalize an observer's perspectives on their physical selves and learn to treat themselves as objects to be looked at and evaluated for their appearance. And self-objectification is also a problem because it can, according to the American Psychological Association, can lead to side effects and consequences, such as the detract from the ability to focus, and that can lead to a disadvantage in relation to performance in tests and things involving logical reasoning like math. And actually there's this 1999 study where they asked different college students to wear either a swimsuit or a sweater in a dressing room on their own. They were alone on the dressing room, and then they were asked to complete a math test, but wearing like either the swimsuit or the sweater. And the results showed that there was a significant difference between how women's wearing the swimsuit performed, and how women wearing the sweater performed. And it was significantly worse. The performance was significantly worse for women that were wearing swimsuits. On the other hand, there were no differences when in the men's experiment. Like, it didn't matter if they wore a swimsuit or a sweater, because the results weren't that significantly different. And again, according to the American Psychological Association, thinking about the body and comparing it to sexualized cultural ideas disrupted mental capacity. In the emotional domain, sexualization and objectification undermine confidence in and comfort with one's own body, leading to a host of negative emotional consequences such as shame, anxiety, and even self-disgust. And that was said by the American Psychological Association in relation to this 1999 experiment. So as a conclusion, to wrap everything up, the over-sexualization of female cartoon characters that happens because it's from a male perspective, from the male gaze, leads to self-objectification in young girls and women, and that can contribute to gender inequality and self-perceptions of yourself and many other consequences because of the effect mass media has on society, which is why we really need to advance to have a better representation of women and female characters in mass media. So thank you so much for listening. This was a really fun video to research for, and I really found interesting the 1999 experiment. I thought it was really revealing, I guess. Please remember to like, comment, and share the video to friends and family if you enjoyed it. And if you have any suggestions or your own opinions on the topic, please leave it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.